Tēnā no tātou katoa, mihi anō ki a tātou, tae mai whakarongo I te pōnei, I te tari Kaeo. Kia ora everybody, welcome back again. This little segment here is to offer a solution as to where you may go and search for information regarding the documents again, the 1835 He Waka Putanga o Te Rangatiratanga and Te Treaty o Waitangi. I'm just going to draw some little examples on the whiteboard on how that may be done for you, those who are searching for what are those two documents, what are they for, where did they come from, and how are we to understand them today. First and foremost, I'd just like to identify the authors of these two documents, the authors on our taha Māori side, and what kind of information and knowledge base did they have and where did it come from, more to the point, because I'm encouraging us to look back into the past to determine what happened in our future or their future of 1835 and 1840. So to be very clear and very, very clear, the authors of the document had a certain mindset. And I'm going to encourage us to go back and rediscover that mindset that they have. And the reason why I'm doing or making this suggestion is, and sharing this, what I've heard in many, many hui with elders, is because to understand the document, first and foremost, you must read it. But you must try to read it with an understanding of the mindset that our elders had when they put that document together. How was it difficult to make the decision to write these documents in our dialect in the Northern Tribes and the Northern Territories? You know, the document being written in the dialect of an ancient reo, you can't discover what the true understanding is of those kupu or those words on that dialect from coming to a contemporary dialect. In a lot of cases, we have done that and we consistently do that. I don't mean to criticize, I'm just here to share. I don't mean to challenge anyone's intelligence. I'm just offering this as a solution as to where we need to consider. The first and foremost, in that explanation of why do we not go into the future from 1840 into today to look for those understandings, is because of the authors of those understandings. They're not from our culture, they're from a totally different culture. So we've got to go into the culture of those authors to find the true understanding of what those documents say. So I'd like to use a couple of, in particular, words, if I can say it like that, that are used that do irk me personally slightly. First and foremost, some colleagues have explained or given a definition of He Waka Putanga o Te Rangatiratanga and Te Treaty o Waitangi to be a contract. I'm very, very confident that our elders didn't have that type of mindset. You can't disseminate te reo into English, but you can get an understanding in English of the te reo. And the other word that's being used is it's called a constitution. Again, we're talking about 1840 through to today's information, or, you know, going on to Google. And I have searched that engine for parallels of what I understand the document to mean and what those different kupu or words say on the 1835 document. And it's to our elders that shared that knowledge and that who lived in a tikanga world with their mothers, my grandmother, for an example, and the great-grandparents, where the world was and what it looked like for them. To be called company law and encouraging company law to be part of the thinking of the authors that wrote those two documents. Again, is as far as some of the words that the elders used when they heard that kind of discussion, because of the sacredness of those kupu, of that ancient dialect, was actually being, I'm sorry about this, lazy and offensive, and very offensive, especially when our people adopted the philosophies of the Western world in an attempt to describe our ancient cultural world, which were vastly different, vastly different. The Indo-European world and the Austro-Polynesian world are vastly different in languages, and that is validated by the many, many linguistic anthropologists that have looked at languages around the world and where did they come from. So in saying that, the little diagram I'd like to share with us this evening is, first and foremost, I want to draw a definite line to start with, and I want to put the relationship in regards to us here in Aotearoa, beginning in 1840, and the jurisdictions that began in 1840 were one based on tikanga, and the other was based on law. And the line there gives an explanation, and never the twain shall meet. The two philosophies of tikanga and the philosophy of law are vastly different, and they're separated by a very, very strong, line. So also in this explanation, I'd like to further explain by using a timeline, and I'll call that a timeline. This timeline begins with now and begins with then, ends with then. Now, the then explanation, I'm going to say, began where Eo Matua Kore called Ranginui and Papatuanuku through the koho. And there are many, many events that happened pre-1835 that happened. The events of Maui, the events of migration here to Aotearoa, from Hawaii Nui, from Hawaii Roa and Hawaii Pāmamao. And then in 1769, the arrival of Captain Cook, who discovered New Tirini. So if we draw some of those timelines and we put in here 1840. So from 1840 to today, we have a totally different culture on the law side that has consistently imposed the philosophy of what our ancestors authored in the two documents. So in this little diagram here, I'm going to offer the solution for you to get understanding of those authors and why they wrote what they wrote, or more to the point, what was the source of their knowledge. And I'm going to suggest to you that this future they didn't live in. So only we know that future that are alive today that lived in it. So how could they know in 1840 what these legislations in the future were going to be? They didn't know. They had no idea. For an example, the Article 1, ko mātou ko ngā tino rangatira o ngā iwi o Nutirini. If we go into the kupu iwi, or the word iwi, there were no runanga authorities back in 1835 or in 1840, so they weren't talking in that context, if I can say it like that. So if we come back pre-1840, where the original sacred meaning of the kupu iwi comes from, we'll find it drastically different to our understanding of it today. How do we get this information here? Because we also know that the people that recorded our history were not from our culture, they were from another culture. So in a very, very considerable explanation, they lied about our culture, and they're still doing it today. We do need to, e tātou mā, we do need to tell our story, and we do need to tell it loud and proud, because there is a lot to be proud of in our history, pre-contact, and the massive feats that we achieved. For an example, Maui slowing down the sun was a massive feat. Pulling up the fish that we currently reside on today was a massive feat. the development of the 1835 document and the 1840 document written in a dialect that belongs to us was a massive feat. I don't know of any other documents of that nature that were put into our dialect so that our understanding was clearly advocated in that. It's not written in an English dialect, it's written in a cultural dialect, and it can't be explained. So very, very often we come across explanations of He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi using pieces of legislation that exist today to explain what the ancestors or those authors, and I just want to say this again, our tupuna that authored these documents did not have the knowledge of today of what kinds of laws, the contract law, the constitution law in their mindset when they wrote those documents. If I can open a door for you to research how did our tupuna see the document, if I can, I'll use those words over here, and I'll use contract and constitution and company law. Our ancestors, and keeping in mind this very distinctive clear line here, what our ancestors knew the 1835 and 1840 document were called the behavior of a whakahau is an order or a direction that does not require a response. And the best place you can find the understanding of a whakahau is in real life. I knew in my upbringing as a whakahau was an instruction from a grandparent, when a grandparent was disciplining or giving direction or advising a mokopuna. There was an order or a direction given from a grandparent. It's the best place to discover what a whakahau is, and you as a granddaughter or as a grandson or a mokopuna to that grandparent did what you were told, and it was as simple as that. That, in my opinion, from the knowledge that's been shared with me by many, many elders right throughout the mutu over many, many decades, was what they saw the document to be, a whakahau. There has been no response to He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti. He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi has never been usurped in a court of law, because it's under this jurisdiction here. It can't be usurped by law. And when we go into these events that took place, that was the mindset our elders had, or the authors had, when they wrote those two documents. So again, to discover the true sacred understanding of He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti, and the understanding of those kupu on the document, it comes from this upbringing on pre-contact. Each kupu, I'd like to disclose that it's very valid that you do your research, where do you go to get this information? You won't find it on Google. I can just make this suggestion to you, is there are still many, many elders that remember that life, that remember elders from this time, and that knew what they were told by their parents and by their grandparents. I would encourage this generation here to speak to them. And because I found them very willing to share their information on the ahua, or the behavior of a lot of the kupu that are on the document, and their true understanding as to where they come from. If you make the claim that you don't have elders, and you've been displaced from your elders or from your hapu, and I understand, and there are many, many people that make that claim, is find an elder, find a kaumātua, find a rangatira, find someone to talk to. There also are claims that a lot of the elders are kupapa, or they're traitors, or they're sold out to the government. I assure you that in most cases, because of survival, they've had to hide that knowledge until a point in time when they've been asked. So in saying that, I hope this does help in some way. There are a lot of other places. If you want to ask further questions, please don't hesitate to ask questions on this platform, and we'll do our best to. We have a wealth of information to share. with everybody if they're willing to do that. It's not a simple journey. There are certain attributes that have to be considered that could compromise your thinking or your behavior or the way you are and the way you want to be. And that's okay. I truly say that. So in saying that, I again hope this has been of benefit and of help. Nō reira, kia ora tātou.